Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel, and I'm in this video to hopefully shed some light to you guys on what has happened today, why we saw the experiences we saw, and what could and could not have been done to prevent it. I've seen a lot of steps, a lot of suggestions, a lot of justified gripes, but a lot of things that were said that just wouldn't have stopped this from happening. So in this video, I'm going to break down where I think that they failed and dropped the ball as someone who has an IT background and works very closely with different cloud solutions, as well as what we can expect moving forward and what the essential root causes are. So stick around. If you are interested in acquiring any of my Overkill's tutorial guides for Microsoft Flight Simulator, or simply interested in supporting the channel, please consider joining us on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides, as well as any future releases that come down the road. Patreon link can be found in the description below.
Overkill simulations, watch us as we fly. Overkill simulations, the thrill will never die.
All right, guys, so first up, we're going to start out by simply talking about where I feel they went wrong in the testing. That's the number one thing I'm hearing is testing. They should have tested. Yes, they should have tested better. And we're going to talk about what they did and what I feel they could have done better, just from the outside looking in. And then on the other side of that fence, that I also think they were pretty limited on what their options were for testing at this magnitude. So let's talk. So first thing, this all starts when we go back. My whole synopsis on this comes back to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 and the 2024 press release that they did just after they were all in Sedona. So just after the press release from Sedona, Jorg had jumped on and said that Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 had seen the largest influx of flight simulator pilots than any other simulator before, and the difference was in the millions of pilots. Millions of new flight simmers joined with the inception of Flight Simulator 2020, okay, and during its life cycle. So that's the first key point that rings an alarm to me today after I'm hearing everything that has happened. Now we get into the 2024 Dev Alpha. The Dev Alpha was by volunteer joining only, right? You had to go through an application. I mean, it wasn't an application. It was and it wasn't. But you had to fill out this form, and if you didn't catch it, you missed it, and it was only 3 days. Here's where I think they went wrong there. And this will be prudent later on, so bear with me. In my opinion, what they should have done in that particular release is they should have just pushed it out to everyone who already pre-purchased it. Okay, if you pre-purchased it, you just should have got it. And if you didn't pre-purchase it, you should have been able to just hit a button and says, hey, with the expectation that blah, 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 here's the information you need to provide. Yeah, I have it, but then just immediately submit a download link once you had the required data. Okay, that's the thing. Because this is a global launch, okay? And again, this is all going to come prudent in a second, so bear with me. You have a worldwide launch of a cloud-based application. Doesn't matter if that's a flight simulator, just a cloud-based application that is a worldwide launch that many of your already previously known Microsoft 2020 users, millions of users, are anticipating and exciting for. You knew the hype, you knew everybody wanted it, you knew where you were. Okay, all right? So now let's get into what the other side of that testing was. During the Dev Alpha, everything tested great. Everything was fine, blah, blah, blah. Now we get into the root cause of the issue. The root cause of the issue is actually the database cache. And this is a very high level explanation. So for those of you who are like me and a techie, please understand, I'm trying to keep this as high level as I can so people just understand what is going on and why. Okay, so this is going to be very, very vague, very, very high level. Yes, a lot of technical details are going to be missing. Just bear with me, okay? So, and if I'm completely wrong, I don't think I am, but if I am, then by all means, feel free to comment down below. Just be nice. Okay, I know us techies, we can be shits. So anyways, here's what essentially is happening, and then we'll come back to the number of users and the testing that was done. Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 and any other cloud solution essentially has, we're going to call it the 24 database. This is our Microsoft 24 database. And within inside that database, you have a whole bunch of different cells, if you will. You have career mode, you have aircraft, you have scenery, you have logins, user database, marketplace, right? You guys get the gist. You have all these different cells that are all different aspects of what make the flight simulator experience appear on your screen and allow you to do the things that you do. Now, with a cloud solution, you don't want 1.5 million, 2 million users accessing all those different cells at any given time, because one thread, you being a thread, one connection being a thread, can turn into hundreds of connections very, very quickly as it spiders out to all these different databases, these database cells, okay? So what they do is it's the same thing that we do when we talked about the rolling cache in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, right? You have, so back to our database, and then right below it, you have this bubble that we're going to call our cache. And there's a little service over here, a service, think of it as just a person. This is for those of you who aren't techie. Think of it as just a person working this table, this cache table. And he's dealing cards out, right? He's handing everything out to you as you log in. That cache got overwhelmed, okay? Just like in the cache I was mentioning, the rolling cache in 2020, it has a size limit, okay? So what they put in that cache typically is how a quick cache would work like that, is all the essentials. And this is where those of you who are stuck, and all of us who are stuck in this morning, at the 97%, this is why it happened. So what they do is they take all of your primary, as you're logging in, all of that login information, your user ID, the credentials, your downloads, whatever else that may be needed before you get to the dashboard of the simulator. And it pulls all that down into cache. And then what happened is they had so many connections flooding, pulling that same data at the same time, that our card dealer, the cache service, was sitting there trying to deal the cards out to everyone as they kept asking, and it couldn't keep up. So the service, essentially what would happen is you were stuck at 97%. Then you got the error on your screen that said server connection lost or whatever the hell it said. And then when it said server connection lost, what was happening is the guy, our cache service dealing out the card said, stop, I'm taking a break, wait. And he turned around, walked away from the table, and then came back and said, okay, let me try again. Okay. And then as he went to deal it, well, all those connections were still pounding away at him. And so it kept restarting. And that every time you saw that server connection lost, it was that cache service restarting. Okay. So I'm going to talk about what they said that they had tested internally. Internally, they said that they had tested the connection to the database internally with up to 200,000 connections at a single time. My argument to that, my problem with that testing is when you can stand there on stage, and this, I'm not trying to be a jerk to Jorg or Sebastian or anyone else. I'm not. I'm simply expressing my side of this. I'm just as frustrated as you guys. I'm a content creator. Obviously, this was a big day for us too, right? And all of us content creators, you know, I'm going to call it as it is. A lot of us lost out. Let's just call it what it is. You guys know that we earn money on this. You're the reason that I earn money. You guys, my viewers who watch my videos, you guys, I'm a single father of 3, and you guys help me out. You helped me out a lot. And so I was looking forward to today. Anyway, so I get the frustration. So I'm not trying to call anyone out or be a jerk. I just wanted to throw that out. But when you can stand there on a press release and say that Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 had millions of new flight simmers, millions, and you only test your database with at 200,000 connections at any one time. Now, I'm sure 200,000 wasn't anywhere near the limit that they had expected. I'm sure they expected a couple of million connections at any given time. But again, you're talking about millions, and globally on a launch day with a cloud solution. You had to have known. They're just, and I guess they couldn't have known. And maybe they thought this is where they didn't give enough information on the back end of things. Maybe they thought the service could handle it, and that's possible. Some things you don't know their limits until you find them, right? And I've seen it before in IT. I've seen it in software. You think it's ready. You've done every possible scenario in your head, and you think, yeah, the service can handle it. Yeah. Maybe on those 200,000 connections, maybe the usage was like, maybe the car dealer was sitting there going, and, right? So maybe they thought it was fine. Okay, so I'm genuinely not trying to be a jerk. That is a possibility. But that's what happened. They tested with 200,000 connections, and I feel like that was underwhelming for what they should have done. Like I said previously, I think they should have pushed it out to everybody and let everyone connect to it. Ran the dev alpha for 3 days, 4 days, give it to literally anyone who asked for it, let it get pounded, find the breaks under the, send out an email, guys, just let you know if it goes down, we're going to terminate the alpha. This is what we're here for. I would have absolutely supported that. And especially if they were just transparent. Hey guys, we want you all to log in and break it. We want to see if you're going to break it. Sure. You told us the launch date was November 19th. I know that, being the dev alpha, I know that today isn't the 19th. Sure, yeah, I'll help you break the crap out of that son of a gun. Okay? So, that is what was going on. Now, a lot of people were talking about preloading, right? Well, they should have just let us preload. I need you guys to understand that, yeah, they probably could have. I mean, I don't understand really why they didn't either. Sure, it would have saved a minute. Okay, because, well, let's get into that in a minute. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is preloading. I've heard that a lot, and we're going to go into a little. After I explain this, I'll tell you that why I agree that yeah, they could have probably preloaded, but I need you guys to understand preloading would not have stopped this issue. So for all of you, there's a lot of you, and again, I completely understand the frustration, but I've seen a lot of people saying, "God, if they had just let us preload. I don't understand why they just let us preload." That would not have stopped this issue. Okay, because even if you had preloaded the software, you still would have had to log into that database. And it was the jumping in and connecting to that database that was the problem. It is not the installation. It was not downloading the content. That is not what the problem was here, guys. So whether you preloaded or not, we still would have had this problem. It still would have reared its ugly head because it's the number of connections to the database just logging into the server to go and fly. Okay, once it exceeded whatever limit this was that caused the problem, it would have happened regardless. Okay, it just means that you would have already had the software installed and still been waiting in the queue. Okay, that's the only thing that would have changed, but the problem still would have taken place. Now, to support you guys, I think they could have probably let us preload just to save a little bit of time, and just disabled the authentication service. I mean, again, it sort of goes back to what I was talking about, that little cell in the database. When we go to connect to the cloud, it would have had to say, okay, Overkill Sims, yes, let's verify it with our user database. Yes, he does have access to Flight Simulator 2024. Let him through. Just take that service that checks and disable it, right, until the 19th. So yeah, they probably could have done that, but they didn't. It is what it is. So anyways, guys, that's the long and short of it. Now, here's what they're doing to fix it. Now, essentially what they're doing to try to fix it, and they didn't really go into a lot of detail, so a lot of this is going to be speculation. They're obviously going to have to ascertain what the weakness, or locate, I should say, not ascertain. Well, I guess ascertain still works. Ascertain the root cause of why the service is failing, whether it be a hardware limitation or a software limitation. It could absolutely be a software limitation. And so if that's the case, then they'll have to, obviously, my guess would be if it's software, the only other option, well, really, if it's hardware too, I think either way, they're probably going to have to build more servers. They're going to have to expand it, whether it be virtual machines or the physical hardware. It all depends on where that bottleneck to the cache is happening. Is it truly the cache service, or is the number of threads across the network? And I mean their network internally. There's a lot of things that happen. So my speculation on this would be probably, I would guess, anywhere between the next 24 and 48 hours. This will continue, if not maybe even 72. Now, the good news is that when they iron this out, when they figure it out, and as the connections begin to stabilize, this will go away. Okay, this. Okay, and we'll all be able to just log in as we used to and go up and fly and do our thing. Now, I'm hoping that, and the one thing that I'll take from this, by the way, is that when I was watching the Microsoft development stream video just a few minutes ago, it was about 5.5 minutes long. Look up Microsoft Flight Simulator development stream, and you guys should see it. It's the most recent video on their YouTube channel, about 5.5 minutes long. They look exhausted. I'll give them that. They don't look happy. They don't look like they're just soaking up the money. No, they don't. They look very frustrated. They look very tired. Okay, so I'm trying to. I've been there in IT support. I've been there. I've been on those long days where, I've had cutovers for enterprise level corporations that I expected things were just going to rock and roll, and they blew up. And I've been on calls for 14, 18 hours before trying to determine technical issues. So I can relate to an extent. So anyways, the good news is that when it's all ironed out, and as they are currently working on it right now, they are trying to ascertain what the root cause is. Sebastian just said that, did say that, as far as why the service is failing and why the connections are so much more than what they anticipated. They are also doing what they can on the both hardware and software side, it sounds like, to sort of implement some sort of new mitigation that will get everybody back into the simulator and enjoying it. I know I've seen a lot of people refunding. This is just my personal opinion. I am not trying to pass judgment at all. I think that's premature, in my opinion. It'd be one thing if 2 weeks from now it's still doing that. Now, with that being said, I am going to emphasize, I know that Steam, for example, has a limit. I know that, I think it's 24 hours or 48 hours, something like that they have a limit. Okay, once you pass that limit. And by the way, for you Steam users, please keep in mind, just in case you are one of those who wants to consider that, as you're sitting here in the queue, you are burning up playtime. So please keep that in mind. That clock is still ticking, whether you're in the sim or not. As far as Steam is concerned, you're in the sim. Okay, so please keep that in mind. But anyways, for me, I think it's a little premature. If you're on the store version or something like that, I think it's worth it to give them a couple days and see what happens. This is just like Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 was sort of a completely new architecture on itself. So is this. This is the first time a simulator of this magnitude and of this demand was pushed into the cloud. And this is honestly, this is why I hate cloud solutions. And I'm right there for those of you who have said, I wish they just give us a large install. So do I. 100%. I would much rather buy a whole nother hard drive if I had to for this. But I am 100% right there with you. I prefer local installations over cloud any day of the week. I hate relying on somebody else's service in order to use what I've purchased. And that's essentially what this comes down to. So I do get that. Don't feel like I'm discrediting that at all. I'm not. I'm just trying to give support, and I'm trying to give you guys optimism where the day has been very frustrating, and I want you guys to know it's been very frustrating for myself as well. A lot of time was lost. I mean, I'm kind of glad I didn't take the day off work. I was going to take the day off for this, and I'm pretty glad that I didn't. That would have been a waste. But anyways, as always, guys, I just wanted to share the information that I had with you. Hopefully, I know it doesn't make anyone feel any better, but hopefully it at least gives you some. I know a lot of the frustration is why. Why is this happening? All right. I know that that's a very common thing. That's how I get to. I deal with things a lot better when I at least understand what happened. Right. So hopefully that sheds some light on that. I hope the explanation was at least understandable and made sense to you guys as to what went wrong and what they're doing to fix it. As always, folks, stay safe and healthy. Look forward to seeing you in the simulator. See you in the next one.